Good evening. How's everybody doing? Great to be learning with you on a Sunday, Mother's Day. May all the moms out there be having a sweet and uplifting and a great Mother's Day in which they're being honored by all their offspring as well as their loved ones and neighbors. Let's light up the darkness. And I would like to dedicate today's episode to Nina, who is a creative genius and beautiful and incredible mom. And I'm just so proud and grateful and honored to be her husband and to be working with her in Accidental Talmudist and Guns and Moses and everything that we do together. None of it would be possible for me without Nina. And I'm just in awe of all that she accomplishes every day. And so I dedicate our learning today to Nina, the incredible and awesome and beloved Nina. And let us say Amen. Okay. So our daf today is page 22 here in Tractate Makkos, the 25th volume of the Talmud. And with that will set us up to make a siyum tomorrow. We'll do pages 23 and 24 tomorrow and finish the tractate. Make a little celebration before we move on to Tractate Shavuos. Okay. Oh, lots of amens there. Everybody's happy to honor Nina. Absolutely. Who's in the house? Stephen in New Hampshire, Nancy, North Carolina, Bella in Florida, Guy in Ohio, Melissa in Great Neck, Joe in the Inland Empire, Bill in Mid-Missouri, Belle in Virginia, Yehuda in South Carolina, Lorraine in Texas, Shandor in the Bronx, John in Maine, Debbie in New Jersey, Stan in Seattle, Joseph in New York, Karen in Northern California, and a bunch of amens for Nina. Over there on the YouTube side, Ella in Southern California, Alan in New York City, Norm in 29 Palms, Aoife in Florida, Chaim in Florida. Welcome, everybody. Let's get busy. We're picking this up near the bottom of page 21. Well, 21b is actually a short daf. So about a third of the way down on page 21b, continuing our discussion of Mishna number 5. The concept here is a Nazir who was given one warning: don't drink. If you do, you'll be subject to lashes because you're violating your vow of Nazirus. To abstain from products of the grapevine, getting a haircut, coming into contact with the dead. So he was given one warning, and then he drank all day. It's only going to be one set of lashes. But if he was given a warning before each and every drink, and then in front of witnesses, he had another drink right after the warning, so it's going to be a separate set of lashes for each instance. That's the Mishnah. We continue this discussion. The Mishnah teaches and then this beautiful hypothetical case that's just the sages kind of testing each other, coming up with a crazy situation where you'd be violating 8 different prohibitions at the same time with the same action. And so since there's 8 different prohibitions being violated, you could be subject to lashes for all 8 just from one action, presumably if you were warned. And if you plow that field with sowing diverse kinds, and you're plowing with a donkey and a cow and an ox together, and you're, doing it on Shabbos, etc. So then all these different, you have to be warned that you're violating all these prohibitions. But really what this is about is, can they come up with an action that simultaneously violates 8 negative prohibitions? So the Mishnah teaches, there is one who plows a single furrow, and he's liable to receive lashes for violating 8 prohibitions. Rabbi Yanai says that when the sages sat in a group, their opinions were counted, and they concluded one who covers seeds of diverse kinds, because you can't plant, let's say, a vineyard and wheat in the same plot. One who covers seeds of diverse kinds with dirt is flogged for sowing diverse kinds. In other words, you're planting seeds. If the seeds are there and you just put the dirt over them, it's the same as planting. Rabbi Yochanan said to them, isn't the law? Isn't this the law in our Mishnah? That there is one who plows a single furrow and is liable to receive lashes for violating 8 different prohibitions, including for plowing with an ox and a donkey, and they are consecrated, right? They're consecrated animals that you're not allowed to use for work. And he is plowing diverse kinds into a vineyard, so violating the prohibition of kilayim. So with regard to this person who plows, who is liable to receive lashes due to violating the prohibition of diverse kinds, how can you find these circumstances? Plowing a field is unrelated to sowing diverse kinds. Right? Are you plowing, which is preparing a field for planting, or are you planting? Right? It seems like they are related, but they're not the same action. Is it not a case where one covers the seeds with dirt in the course of his plowing? So the seeds are along the side of the furrow that he's plowing, and as the dirt comes out of the furrow, it covers the seeds that are alongside the furrow. Again, they're having fun. They're trying to come up with a scenario where there's maximum number of prohibitions being violated in the same action. Right? So it's where when one covers the seeds with the dirt in the course of his plowing as he proceeds, indicating that one who covers the seeds of diverse kinds is flogged. So Rabbi Yanai said to him, "You are correct. But if I had not lifted the earthenware shard for you, would you have found the gem beneath it?" What's he saying? It was only after I told you the law that you succeeded in finding a source in the Mishnah. So later, Reish Lakish said to Rabbi Yochanan, "If it was not for the fact that a great man," meaning Rabbi Yanai, "praised your statement, I would say that there is no proof from the Mishnah, as it is possible to say, whose opinion is expressed in the Mishnah? It is that of Rabbi Akiva, who says one who maintains diverse kinds by performing actions essential for their existence is flogged. Therefore, one who plows and covers seeds of diverse kinds is liable to receive lashes, as he facilitates the existence of the diverse kinds, not because in covering the seeds it is as though he sowed them." In other words, if you have a field that has diverse kinds in it, let's say grapevines alongside wheat plants, wheat stalks, right? And then you pull weeds from around this field of diverse kinds, so you are promoting the growth. You're enabling it to prosper, and that's going to be violating the negative prohibition against planting diverse kinds, because you're enabling them to keep growing, at least according to the Rabbi Akiva. So the Gemara asks, what is the aforementioned statement of Rabbi Akiva as it is taught in Baraisa? One who weeds and one who covers the seeds of diverse kinds with dirt is flogged, as he performed an action that promotes the growth of the diverse kinds, which is tantamount to sowing. Sowing, S-O-W-I-N-G. So Rabbi Akiva says, even one who maintains diverse kinds violates the prohibitions. Not, maintaining it is just as bad as planting it in the first place, according to Rabbi Akiva. Now the Gemara asks, what is the reason for the opinion of Rabbi Akiva, as it is taught in a Baraisa that it is written, your field you shall not sow with diverse kinds, Leviticus 19:19. So I have derived only that sowing diverse kinds is prohibited. From where do I derive that maintaining diverse kinds, which does not involve any positive action, is also prohibited? Does it involve a positive action? Aren't you weeding? It is, as the verse states, your animals you shall not breed with different species. That's a kind of kilayim. Your field you shall not sow with diverse kinds. Another kind of kilayim, which is interpreted as though it is written, diverse kinds, kilayim, in your field you shall not sow, indicating that one may not allow diverse kinds to remain in his field. If you're a real student of Hebrew syntax, this will come off the page. Ula said to Rav Nachman, and let him be flogged also for violating the prohibition of sowing on a festival. What if he was doing this on a festival? Or what if he was doing it on a festival that falls on Shabbos? Right? Because Shabbos can land on a festival. Now, you're not allowed to plant crops on Shabbos, definitely one of the 39 prohibited labors on Shabbos. Well, what if Pesach, Passover, was also on Shabbos? So would there be a separate prohibition that you're violating for doing this labor on a day that is both Shabbos and a festival? Rav Nachman said to him, indeed, lashes for that prohibition could have been included in the Mishnah. The Tana taught certain prohibitions and omitted others. Ula said to him, the Tana taught and specifically enumerated 8 sets of lashes. And you say that he taught some and omitted some. Rava says the reason that sewing on a festival was omitted is that there is a division of labors on Shabbos, but there is no division of labors on a festival. On Shabbos, one who unwittingly performs several prohibited labors during one lapse of awareness is liable to bring one sin offering for each labor that he performed. But on a festival, if one performs several prohibited labors, he is liable to receive only one set of lashes, as there is one prohibition against performing labor on a festival. So this is an important difference between Shabbos and Yom Tov, right? Shabbos and a festival. Because as you see, what are the prohibited labors? So the sages have derived elsewhere, we saw in Tractate Shabbos, that there are 39 prohibited labors. Basically, they got the definitions from the types of labor that were required to build the tabernacle in the desert. And when God commanded Moses and the children of Israel in the desert to build the tabernacle, and he explained all the different kinds of things that had to do, God also included in those instructions, you shall keep Shabbos, from which it was derived that these are all the labors that we cannot do on Shabbos. So this idea of a division of labors is there's 39 categories, and if in one lapse of awareness you didn't realize that you were violating Shabbos by doing all these different things, you would have to bring a sin offering for each of the different kinds of labors that you did. Now, a festival has the same prohibitions as Shabbos, with one exception. You can cook on a festival. You can't cook on Shabbos. But it has this additional difference that even though the same labors are prohibited other than cooking, they're considered one group altogether. So if you violated different kinds of categories of labor on a festival in one lapse of awareness, it would only be one sin offering that you would have to bring, of course, when the temple is standing. And Ula said to him, that is so, just so. Abaye raised an objection to the opinion of Rava. And is there no division of labors on a festival? Wait a minute. But didn't we learn in a Baraisa, one who cooks a sciatic nerve in milk? So you can't eat the sciatic nerve of a kosher mammal like a sheep or a goat or especially a cow, right? So we don't eat that part of the animal. And we have a separate prohibition. You don't cook a kid in its mother's milk, from which we derive that you don't mix milk and meat. You don't eat it together. You don't cook it together. You don't benefit from cooking it together and then selling it. We have all these prohibitions. So here they're doubling they're putting 2 prohibitions together. The sciatic nerve, which we're not allowed to eat, and a part of the meat of an animal, the flesh of an animal, the sciatic nerve is included in that, which is now being cooked in dairy, in milk. So it would be 2 different prohibitions. But didn't we learn in the Baraisa, one who cooks a sciatic nerve in milk on a festival and eats it is flogged with 5 sets of lashes? Where do we get to 5? You're allowed to cook on a festival? What's going on? How so? He is flogged for violating the prohibition of eating the sciatic nerve, and he is flogged for violating the prohibition of cooking on a festival, not for the purpose of the festival. See? You can cook on a festival, but only for your needs of the festival. And so, for example, if you have 3-day Yom Tov, meaning that if you had a holiday that was Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, or a Hag that fell on Thursday and Friday, and then you go into Shabbos, right? Now, you can cook on Friday for Friday. You can cook on Thursday for Thursday if those are holiday days. But you can't cook on a festival for the needs of not that festival. But you can't cook on Shabbos. So how are you going to cook on Friday during the festival so that you can have food to eat on Shabbos? This is where we make the Erev Tavshilin, where we put all these days together. And we say that we started the cooking before the holiday, the festival even began, so that we would be covered for Shabbos. Get into the nuances of that another day. But the point is that you cannot cook. You can cook on a festival, but you can't say, oh, and you know what? I'm going to have people over on Monday when it's not the holiday. But now that I'm cooking this big meal, I'll cook a bunch of extra food to have for Monday. You can cook a lot of extra food because somebody else might come to your house on the festival. But you can cook another meal that you're planning to eat after the festival during the festival. Okay, so wait a minute. So what do we say? You can't cook on the festival for after the festival, and you can't cook the sciatic nerve, and you're not going to be able to cook flesh in milk. Okay, that sounds like 3 violations. How are we going to get to 5? Let's start again. How so? He is flogged for violating the prohibition on eating the sciatic nerve, and he is flogged for violating the prohibition of cooking on a festival for the purpose, not for the purpose of the festival. And in this case, because he can't eat the kid cooked in milk, he can't eat it ever, so he's cooking something that he can't eat. Again, he's not cooking for the needs of the festival. And he is flogged for violating the prohibition of cooking a sciatic nerve, which is meat in milk. And he is flogged for violating the prohibition of eating meat cooked in milk. And he is flogged for violating the prohibition of kindling a fire on a festival. You can cook on the festival, but you have to light your fire from an existing flame. You can't make a new flame. And if it is so that there is no division of labors on a festival, he is not liable for violating the prohibition of kindling a fire, as he is already liable for violating the prohibition of cooking the sciatic nerve on a festival. And Rava said, remove kindling from the list of 5 prohibitions for which he is flogged, as he is not liable for violating that prohibition, and insert the prohibition of eating the sciatic nerve of an unslaughtered animal carcass. Why is it an unslaughtered animal carcass? Because we're trying to come up with a situation where there's 5 violations in one. We are on page 22a. The Gemara asks, but didn't Rabbi Chia teach a baraisa that summarizes the prohibitions listed in this Mishnah? One is flogged with 2 sets of lashes for his eating and 3 sets of lashes for his cooking. And if it is so that the prohibition of kindling a fire is replaced with the prohibition of eating the sciatic nerve of an unslaughtered animal carcass, he is liable to receive 3 sets of lashes for his eating, for eating the sciatic nerve, for eating meat cooked in milk, and for eating an unslaughtered animal carcass, a nevela, rather than something that was shechted in a kosher manner, slaughtered in a kosher manner. But we're trying to come up with 2 for eating and 3 for cooking. So rather say, remove kindling from the list of prohibitions, and then insert the prohibition of using wood of a tree worshipped as part of idolatrous rites. An Asherah tree, which in ancient Israel, they would come upon these trees that idolaters had used in their rituals of idolatry, of avodah zarah. So that kind of a tree, you could never make use of its wood. Since it had been used for idolatry, we could only destroy it. And how do we know that? And nothing of the dedicated items shall cleave to your hand, from Deuteronomy 13:18, indicating that it is forbidden to derive benefit from the accoutrement of idol worship. I like saying that word, accoutrement. Rav Acha, son of Rava, said to Rav Ashi, if the reference is to the wood of an Asherah, let him also be flogged for violating the prohibition, you shall not bring an abomination into your house. Deuteronomy 7:26, in addition to the other prohibitions that have been enumerated. So rather say, with what are we dealing here? We are dealing with a case where one cooked a sciatic nerve with wood consecrated for use in the temple. Not wood that was going to be used for idolatry, rather wood that was consecrated to be used for burning sacrifices on the altar. That's consecrated. You can't make personal use of that for yourself once it's been consecrated to be used in the temple for the purpose of offerings. It's been, in other words, it's become the property of God, and we can't use it for our own use. Where am I? Why did I get lost? I just read that. What is wrong with me? Wood consecrated for use in the temple, whose warning, the source of its prohibition, is from here. And their asherim you shall burn in fire. You shall not do so to the Lord your God. Indicating that one who destroys a consecrated item violates a prohibition. Not only, it sounds like 2 prohibitions. One making personal use of it, and others just destroying something that was consecrated. New subject, the Gemara provides a mnemonic, Shin Nun Beis Aleph Yud, Shin Nun Zayin. These are a bunch of letters in the alphabet, representing the Amoraim who suggest additions to the 8 prohibitions, right? Sages are having fun. Here's how we can come up with additional prohibitions that could be violated while we're trying to rack up, prohibitions that are being violated by a single action. Rav Hoshaya objects to this. And let the Tana also enumerate in his list of prohibition of sowing in a forceful stream. Sowing in a forceful stream, what is that? We're talking here about the heifer whose neck is broken. So when a murder victim is found in the countryside between towns, we can't solve the murder. We don't know who killed him. We don't even know who he is. So we're going to have to bury that guy, and we're going to measure where this victim, sadly, this murder victim, where this body was found, find out which is the closest town to that. The elders of that town have to come out here and perform the ritual of the heifer whose neck is broken. And the Torah states that in that spot where that ritual was performed, that land, it can no longer be used for farming, right? That land is going to be set aside so that people will remember this terrible thing happened, and this will make an atonement for the land, because we don't want murder, unsolved murder, unpunished murder to be in the land. It contaminates the land and brings down the spiritual level of the entire land of Israel. So if you did this, all the plowing in all those 8 prohibitions we've been talking about, and you did it in a place where there had been that ritual, the heifer whose neck is broken, then it would be 9 prohibitions you're violating at the same time. And its prohibition is from here, Deuteronomy 21:4, and the elders of that city shall bring the heifer down to a forceful stream, which will be neither plowed nor sown. So the verse is written in the future tense as a prohibition for the future. Therefore, it is prohibited to work the land in that spot after the heifer's neck is broken. Rav Hanania also objects to the list of only 8 violations. And let the Tan of our Mishnah also enumerate one who erases the name of God in the course of his walking and plowing. And its prohibition is from here, and you shall destroy their names. You shall not do so, the Lord your God. I guess this would be if you had a tablet or a parchment on which God's name was written, and you laid it on the ground, which would be disrespectful, but okay, let's say it's already there, and then you ran your plow over it and destroyed God's name in that writing. So then you could add an additional prohibition. Rabbi Abahu objects to this also. He says, let the Tan of our Mishnah also enumerate one who severs his, this is the Baharis? His snow white leprous, his Baharis. In other words, somebody who has tsaras, and the marks appear on his skin, and so somehow this guy in the act of plowing is also going to sever from his skin this white mark, which would indicate that he has tsaras, right? Rather than he's afraid, oh my gosh, I'm going to be deemed a mitzora and they're going to kick me out of the encampment. Why don't I just peel it off my skin and try to just skate under not be seen doing this, right? Get away with it. So that would be a big sin, a big prohibition being violated. And Abaye has an idea also. He says, let the Tan of our Mishnah enumerate one who loosens the breastplate from upon the ephod in the course of plowing. Getting really weird now, right? So the breastplate of the Kohen Gadol, the high priest serving in the temple, somehow you're going to arrange there's a prohibition, you shall not loosen the breastplate, you shall not remove the stones, you shall not monkey with the accoutrement of the Kohen Gadol. So if you somehow arranged for the garments of the Kohen Gadol to be destroyed or damaged while you're plowing, okay, well that would be another way to violate yet another prohibition with the single act. And the prohibition, or if you lay down the Ark of the Covenant in the path of this plow, and then as you plowed, you dislodged one of the staves, one of the wooden rods that are used for carrying the aron. Again, you would have violated a negative prohibition, which is derived from here. And there shall cleave nothing of the dedicated item to your hand in Deuteronomy 13:18. Ravina adds an idea. And let the Tana also enumerate one who chops down beautiful trees in the course of plowing. You can't cut down, just wantonly destroy trees that are productive trees. For you may eat of it, and you shall not chop it down. Rabbi Zera said to Rabbi Mani, and let the Tan of our Mishnah also enumerate a case where one says, on my oath, I will not plow on the festival, and then he proceeds to violate his oath. Rabbi Mani said, there the oath does not take effect, as he is already under oath from Mount Sinai not to plow on a festival, and an oath does not take effect when another oath is already in place. You cannot swear an oath to violate halacha. That oath will never take effect because you are sworn as a Jew to fulfill the commandments that were given to all the Jewish people in the Torah at Mount Sinai. Rabbi Zera said to him, that oath can take effect in a case where one says, on my oath, I will not plow, whether during the week or on a festival. As in that case, since the oath takes effect in his regard during the week, it takes effect in his regard on a festival as well. I'm sorry, I said it wrong. He said he takes an oath not to plow on a festival, right? Not to violate halacha. But what they're saying is, okay, but you're already sworn not to violate halacha, so you can't add an oath not to violate laws. You already have an oath in place to that effect. And here's how that could happen, according to Rabbi Zera. Right? So on my oath, I will not plow whether during the week or on a festival, as in that case, since the oath takes effect in his regard during the week, it takes effect in his regard on the festival as well. Rabbi Mani replied, the Mishnah did not include that prohibition because the Tana is not teaching a matter that is in the category of those matters subject to dissolution by means of posing a request to a Torah scholar, as oaths fall into that category. This case is not enumerated in the Mishnah. If you swear an oath and you'd like to get out of it so that you won't be liable for transgressing a Torah prohibition when you violate your own oath, that was voluntary and you never should have sworn in the first place, but now that you did swear it, you have to heed it, unless you can go to a Torah scholar who will dissolve it for you. Basically, he will ask you something like, if you had known when you swore that oath that you would be subject to all these kinds of punishments, etc., if you had known what the real consequences would be of swearing that oath, would you have sworn it? No, I would not. Then he's able to dissolve it for you. Not in every circumstance, but most. So they're saying, yeah, but the Tana of this Mishnah doesn't include dissolvable oaths. Rabbi Zera asked, and did the Tana not teach matters subject to dissolution by means of a Torah scholar? But isn't there the matter of consecrated animals, whose sanctity can be repealed by means of a dissolution of the vow by a Torah scholar? And which was included in the Mishnah, saying that if he was using a consecrated animal to pull his plow, that would be an additional prohibition that he's violating. Well, what caused it to be a consecrated animal? He said, I hereby consecrate this animal. That's a kind of vow. And you could have that vow dissolved, so it sounds like dissolvable vows are included in the 8 prohibitions. Rabbi Mani answered, the Tana of our Mishnah is referring to a firstborn animal, which is consecrated from the womb. You don't consecrate it, it's already consecrated when it emerges from the womb. Since it was not consecrated by means of a vow, the sanctity cannot be dissolved by a Torah scholar. Rabbi Zera asked him, but isn't there the matter of the impurity of a Nazir, whose vow of Naziris can be dissolved by a Torah scholar, which was included in the Mishnah? And Rabbi Mani answered, the reference in the Mishnah is to one who is a Nazir like Samson, for whom there is no dissolution of his vow, right? Samson was dedicated as a Nazir from before he was born by his mom. Rabbi Zera asked, is a Nazir like Samson subject to the prohibition of contracting impurity imparted by corpses? He is not. As the Tana enumerated the prohibition of a Nazir becoming impure with impurity imparted by a corpse, clearly he is not a Nazir like Samson. Rather, the Tana of our Mishnah does not enumerate the case of one who violated an oath not to plow, both during the week and on a festival, because this Tana is not of the opinion that a more inclusive prohibition takes effect when the standard prohibition does not take effect. What does that mean? Just as with regard to one who takes an oath not to perform labor on a festival, the oath does not take effect because he's already bound not to perform labor on a festival. So too, even if he adds to it an oath not to plow during the week, it does not take effect because he is already under oath from Sinai not to plow on the festival. Rabbi Hoshaya says, one who breeds a disqualified, consecrated ox with a female, even of the same species, is flogged with 2 sets of lashes, one for labor with a disqualified consecrated animal, and one for breeding 2 animals of diverse kinds. This is a quirk of halacha. So if you have an ox, okay, your ox can pull your plow on your farm. But then you go and say, I hereby consecrate this ox as a gift to the holy temple for the benefit of the temple. It can be used for maintenance of the temple. Okay? Now that ox no longer belongs to you. You're responsible to bring it or deconsecrate it and then sell it, and bring its value to the temple. But it belongs to the temple and essentially belongs to God. Okay, what if, or let's say forget for the upkeep of the temple. You're consecrating it as an offering. I'm going to bring this ox as an offering, an ola, an elevation offering. Because now you're responsible to bring it up to Jerusalem, give it to the Kohanim, and they're going to slaughter it and burn it on the altar as a sacrifice. Basically, you're doing that because you're so grateful to God and you want to praise God with a massive sacrifice. An ox, very valuable animal. But if that ox develops a blemish, so now it can't be brought up as in a sacrifice on the altar. It's disqualified from being brought as a sacrifice on the altar. Does that mean you can go back to plowing with it? No, you cannot, because it was a consecrated animal. Now it's a disqualified consecrated animal, but some of its holiness still adheres to it, so you can't go back to using it for your farm. I think you could redeem it so that you can still make that offering, give that value, bring another offering or something like that. But the disqualified consecrated animal that has not been redeemed certainly cannot be used for plowing. Now, what's interesting about it is that let's just read. Even after the animal is desacralized. Okay, so let's read this again. One who breeds a disqualified consecrated ox with a female, even of the same species, is flogged with 2 sets of lashes. One for labor with a disqualified consecrated animal, and one for breeding 2 animals of diverse kinds. Even after the animal is desacralized through redemption, it remains prohibited to perform labor with it. It is considered diverse kinds because the Torah accorded disqualified consecrated animals the status of 2 animals. It has 2 legal statuses. One consecrated and one non-sacred. So if one breeds such an animal with an ox, it is as though he bred it with an animal of a different species, thereby violating the prohibition. And likewise, Rabbi Yitzchak says, one who drives a disqualified consecrated ox to plow the field is flogged, as it is one body, and the verse accorded it the status of 2 bodies. One who plows with 2 different species of animals together is liable to receive lashes. And that concludes our discussion of Mishnah number 5 here in chapter 3. Let's move on. Mishnah number 6. With how many lashes does one flog a person sentenced to receive lashes? Okay, we're getting away from, this kind of testing our knowledge, testing the sage's knowledge of which kinds and how many different kinds of prohibitions we could violate at once in order to trigger lashes, to now get a little bit more practical and say, well, if a person was sentenced to lashes, how would the lashes be administered and how many? So with how many lashes does one flog a person sentenced to receive lashes? One flogs him with 40 minus 1. As it is stated, and he shall strike him before him in accordance with his wickedness by number. 40 he shall strike him, he shall not add. That's Deuteronomy 25 verses 2 and 3. And the Mishnah joins the end of the first verse and the beginning of the second, forming the phrase by number 40. And the sages interpreted this as a sum adjacent to 40. Rabbi Yehuda says he is flogged with a full 40. That's a minority opinion. We don't follow. And where is he flogged the extra lash according to Rabbi Yehuda? As the Mishnah proceeds to explain, the 39 lashes that everyone agrees on as the maximum are divided into 3, and they're administered in 3 places on the body of the person being flogged. So according to Rabbi Yehuda, there's this additional lash since the Torah mentions 40, and that lash is administered between the shoulders. As we'll see, normally it has to be a number divisible by 3 so that it's going to be 1 on this shoulder, 1 on that shoulder, and 1 on the front, on the chest. Now, one assesses the number of lashes that the one being punished is capable of withstanding only with a number of lashes fit to be divided into 3 equal groups. If the assessment was that he can survive 20 lashes, then he is flogged with 18, the next smaller number divisible by 3. Likewise, if doctors assess concerning him that he is able to receive 40 lashes and survive, he is then flogged some of those 40 lashes. And then they assessed him again and concluded that he cannot receive 40 lashes and survive, he is exempt from additional lashes. And if the doctors initially assessed concerning him that he is able to receive only 18 lashes, and once he was flogged 18 times, they assessed that he is able to receive 40, he is exempt from receiving additional lashes. Now, this Mishnah does not tell us, well, if he stole $100, he might be lashed, with 3 lashes, and if he stole $100,000, he might be lashed with the full 39. It actually doesn't go into the severity of the crime to match it with a number of lashes. What our Mishnah is talking about is lashes have been assessed, but and it sounds like up to 39. So it sounds like the court does have some discretion, but we haven't addressed that yet. All we're talking about is there's a physical assessment. How many lashes can this person, the defendant who is sentenced to lashes, how many can he physically bear? And if the lashes are going to be too hurtful, there's a risk that he could die from getting whipped, or even, it doesn't even have to go all the way to death. It's just how much can he physically tolerate, and he's not going to be given more than that. So this is more about the health of the defendant than the severity of the crime for which he received lashes. Now we're on page 22b. Let's read the Gemara on Mishnah 6. The Gemara begins with a discussion of the number of lashes. What is the reason that the rabbi said that he receives 40 lashes less 1? If it had been written 40 by number, I would say that it means 40 as a precise sum. Now that it is written by number 40, the reference is to a sum that approaches 40. And likewise, Rava said, how foolish are the rest of the people who stand before a Torah scroll that passes before them, and yet they do not stand before a great man. When a sage passes before them, as in a Torah scroll, 40 is written, and yet the sages came and subtracted 1, establishing the number of lashes, the maximum number of lashes is 39. So apparently the authority of the sages is so great that they are able to amend an explicit Torah verse. And by the way, we saw in last week's Torah portion that you must stand before your elders and the prominent ones among you, meaning the Torah scholars. It is a very important positive mitzvah that when an elder walks into the room, or one who is an esteemed sage, a Torah scholar, a great rabbi, comes into the room, you have to stand before him as a mark of respect. And you are missing a great opportunity if you don't stand in front of such a person. Likewise, if your parents walk into a room, you need to stand when they walk into the room. Now, the Mishnah teaches, Rabbi Yehuda says he is flogged with a full 40, and that the additional lashes administered between his shoulders. Rabbi Yitzchak says, what is the reason for the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda? It is as it is written, and one shall say to him, what are these wounds between your arms? Then he shall answer, those with which I was wounded in the house of my friend. Zechariah 13:6. So Rabbi Yehuda understands that this verse is referring to one with wounds from lashes that were administered between the shoulders. Well, how do the rabbis who hold that one is flogged only 39 lashes explain this verse? They explain that this was written with regard to school children struck by their teacher for laxity in their studies, and is not referring to lashes administered by the court, nor, obviously, are we talking about whipping with cowhide or donkey hide a child. This is more like where they would give him a potch, some kind of a little slap or a rap, or, maybe I guess in the old days they would use like a ruler on the knuckles type of thing. It's a wake-up call. It's not, a whipping. The sages, the Mishnah teaches, one assesses the number of lashes that one being punished is capable of withstanding only with a number of lashes fit to be divided into 3 groups. If doctors assess concerning him that he is able to receive 40 lashes and survive, then he is flogged some of those 40 lashes, and then they assessed him again, and they concluded that he cannot receive 40 lashes and survive, then he's exempt from any additional lashes. If the doctors initially assessed concerning him that he is able to receive only 18 lashes, and once he was flogged with 18, they assessed that he is able to receive 40, Nevertheless, he is exempt from any further lashes. And the Gemara infers if he was flogged in practice, yes, he is exempt. If he was not flogged, no, he's not exempt from the rest of the 40 lashes. In other words, if there was a doctor's assessment and said, this guy can only take 10 lashes. And then, okay, they didn't give him the lashes yet. And then, a few days went by before they were able to actually whip him. And then they brought in another doctor, and they're like, I don't know what that first doctor was talking about. He's a healthy man. He can receive all the lashes that you're supposed to give him. Then we would go with the second assessment because he hadn't received any of the lashes yet. And the Gemara raises a contradiction from a Baraisa. If doctors assess concerning him that he's able to receive 40, and they then assessed him again and concluded that he cannot receive 40 and survive, he's exempt. If the doctors initially assess concerning him that he is able to receive 18, and they then assess that he is able to receive 40, he is exempt. So apparently, even if he did not receive the lashes yet, if the assessment changes, it is as though he has already been flogged. We're always going to use the lower assessment. Rav Sheshes said this is not difficult, as this case in the Mishnah is one where doctors assessed his fitness to receive lashes for that day, and there was no change in his condition. Rather, it was discovered that the initial assessment was mistaken. He is exempt only if he was already flogged. If not, another assessment can be performed. That case in the Baraisa is one where doctors assess his fitness to receive lashes for the next day or for a different day. In that case, the initial assessment was accurate. It is his condition that changed. Therefore, it is determined that he is unable to receive lashes according to the initial assessment because his body changed. Well, we're going to look at the body changing and listen to the second assessment, and he'll be exempt from further lashes. And that concludes our discussion of Mishnah number 6. Now, Mishnah 7 here in chapter 3. If one performed a transgression that involves 2 prohibitions, and they assessed concerning him a single assessment of the number of lashes that he could withstand in punishment for both transgressions, he is flogged in accordance with their assessment and is exempt from any additional lashes. And if not, if he was assessed with regard to the lashes that he could withstand for 1 transgression, he is flogged and is allowed to heal, and then is flogged again for violating the second prohibition. Right? So we've got 2 principles in conflict. One is we're not going to hurt somebody and give him more lashes than he can tolerate. But we also have seen that there are certain kinds of cases where he's liable to 2 sets of lashes for even a single action because he violated 2 different prohibitions. So what are we going to do? We're not going to give him more lashes than he can tolerate, but we might whip him, let him heal, and then bring him back for another whipping. That's the Mishnah. Now the Gemara. The case in the Mishnah is one where there is 1 assessment performed for 2 sets of lashes. And the Gemara asks, but isn't it taught in a Baraisa one does not perform 1 assessment for 2 prohibitions? Rav Sheshes said this is not difficult. This ruling in the Baraisa that one does not perform a single assessment for 2 prohibitions is in a case where the doctors assess concerning him that he is able to receive 41 lashes, 2 lashes beyond the full set. Since those 2 additional lashes are not divisible by 3, which is a requirement based on the previous Mishnah, he receives only 39, and that constitutes just 1 set of lashes. He remains liable to receive another set of lashes after he recovers, requiring another assessment and another set of lashes on another day. That ruling in the Mishnah that one performs a single assessment for 2 prohibitions is in a case where the doctors assess concerning him that he is able to receive 42 lashes. In that case, it is possible to ascribe 39 lashes to 1 prohibition and 3 additional lashes to the second prohibition. That is tantamount to 2 separate assessments, although in practice, only 1 assessment was performed. And that's it. That concludes our discussion of Mishnah number 7. Now, Mishnah number 8. How do they flog him? He ties the 2 hands of the person being flogged on this side and that side of a post. And the attendant of the congregation, meaning the agent of the court that is administering the lashes, takes hold of his garments to remove them. And if they were ripped in the process, they were ripped. And if they were unraveled, they were unraveled. And he continues until he bears the chest of the one to be flogged. And the stone upon which the attendant stands when flogging is situated behind the person being flogged. The attendant of the congregation stands on it with a strap in his hand. It is a strap of calf hide, and it is doubled, 1 into 2 and 2 into 4, and 2 straps of donkey hide go up and down the doubled strap of calf hide. The length of its handle is 1 handbreadth, and the width of the straps is 1 handbreadth, and the strap must be long enough so that its end reaches the top of his abdomen, i.e. his navel, when he is flogged from behind. Okay, so maybe you can get that cat o' nine tails type of image into your head, or there's a drawing here like that. It's not nice, right? This is a person is being flogged for violating a provision that he was warned, if you do this, you'll be subject to lashes, and he does it anyway. Okay. And the attendant flogs him with 1/3 of the lashes from the front of him, meaning on his chest, and 2 portions from behind him on his back. And he does not flog him when the one receiving lashes is standing, nor when he is sitting. Rather, he flogs him when he is hunched, as it is stated, and the judge shall cause him to lie down and strike him. Deuteronomy 25:2, which indicates that the one receiving lashes must be in a position that approximates lying down. And the attendant flogging the one receiving lashes flogs him with one hand with all his strength, and the court crier recites the verses, if you do not observe to perform all the words of this law that are written in this book, that you may fear this glorious and awesome name, the Lord your God. And the Lord will make your plagues, makotecha, right, which is the same word for lashes, outstanding, and the plagues of your descendants, and even great plagues, and of long continuance, and severe sicknesses, and of long continuance. That's Deuteronomy 28, verses 58 and 59. And then he returns to the beginning of the verse, and he also recites, and you shall observe the matters of this covenant, and do them, that you make all that you do to prosper. Deuteronomy 29:8. And he concludes with the verse, and he is merciful, and shall atone for transgression, and destroys not. And many a time does he turn his anger away, and does not stir up all his wrath. Psalms 78:38. And then returns to the beginning of the verse that starts, if you do not observe to perform. If one being flogged dies at the hand of the attendant, the latter is exempt because he acted at the directive of the court. If the attendant added 1 additional lash with a strap, then more than he was ordered by the court, and the one being flogged died, then the attendant of the court, the agent of the court, is exiled to a city of refuge on his account as a manslaughterer. It's very interesting. If he added to the count, then he wasn't trying to murder, but he did something that he was not supposed to do, and this is going to amount to manslaughter, for which he is exiled to a city of refuge. If the one being flogged involuntarily sullies himself due to fear or pain, right? If he poops himself or urinates on himself, he is exempt from further lashes. Rabbi Yehuda says that the threshold of shame for men and women is different. The man is exempted if he sullies himself with excrement, and the woman is exempted even with urine. And that concludes Mishnah number 8. Now, the Gemara. Now remember, as awful as this sounds, these offenses that lead to lashes, it's terrible, it hurts, it's humiliating, and then it's over, right? So they're trying to make a very strong impression on that person. He's not going to be imprisoned, but hopefully for his own good. First of all, his suffering will atone for the transgression that he already did. It'll be a very stark memory that he'll probably never violate again, and it'll have a deterrent effect to anyone who witnesses this. Now, page 23a. Getting a little bit of a start on tomorrow, but questions or comments, please get them in. The Mishnah teaches that the attendant rips the garments of the person about to be flogged, and the Gemara explains what is the reason for this. It is due to the verse, for he shall flog him, and your brother shall be debased before you, as tearing his garments debases him. Rav Shesha says in the name of Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, from where is it derived with regard to the strap used for flogging, that is a strap made from the hide of a calf? As it is written, 40 he shall flog him. And this verse is juxtaposed to the verse in Deuteronomy, you shall not muzzle an ox in its threshing, indicating that the strap is made from the hide of an ox. And Rav Shesha says in the name of Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, from where is it derived with regard to a yevama? right? A woman whose husband dies, childless and leaving a brother, who happened before her yavam, right? Her brother-in-law, and her brother-in-law, who she has a choice to marry or perform chalitza, but the brother-in-law was afflicted with boils. Well, one does not compel her to enter into levirate marriage with this brother-in-law who's afflicted with boils. How do we know that? It is derived from a verse, as it is written, you shall not muzzle an ox in his threshing, and juxtaposed to it is written when brothers dwell together, which is the passage dealing with yibum, with levirate marriage. So the Yavama is not muzzled, as it were, when she states that she does not want to enter into levirate marriage with him. And Rav Sheshes says in the name of Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, concerning anyone who treats the festivals with contempt, it is as though he is worshiping idols. As it is written, molten gods you shall not make for yourself, prohibition on avodah zarah, idolatry. And this verse is found juxtaposed in the Torah to the next verse, the festival of Passover you shall observe. So this juxtaposition teaches an additional lesson. Not only do you have to make sure to keep Pesach, but if you don't keep Pesach, it's like you're committing idolatry. And Rav Sheshes says in the name of Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah concerning anyone who speaks malicious speech, lashon hara, gossip, and anyone who accepts lashon hara as the truth, right? It's bad to speak gossip, and it's just as bad to listen to it. And anyone who testifies a false testimony, it is fit to throw such a person to the dogs. As it is written, to the dog you shall cast it in Exodus 22:30. And this is juxtaposed to the first verse of the next chapter. You shall not accept a false report. Do not join with the wicked to be a false witness. Again, the juxtaposition of verses teaches an additional lesson. In addition to prohibitions against false testimony, against accepting malicious speech, Rav Sheshes also reads into the verse the meaning, you shall not relate, lo tasi, a false report. Not just no listen, don't transmit. And the Mishna teaches, and two straps go up and down the doubled strap of calf hide. And the sage taught, and they are straps of donkey hide. As a certain Galilean interpreted before Rav Chizda, it is written, the ox knows its owner, and the donkey its master's trough. But Israel does not know, my people does not consider. Isaiah 1:3, speaking poetically, even an ox knows who its owner is, and is kind and grateful to its owner who feeds it every day. And yet the people of Israel have become ungrateful and are chasing after, the gods of others, have lost sight of who their owner is, who their Father in heaven is, right? Isaiah was rebuking the people. So the Holy One, blessed be He, says, let the one who recognizes its master's trough, meaning an ox and a donkey, in this verse in Isaiah, come and exact retribution through lashes with a strap of ox and donkey hide from one who does not recognize his master's trough and performs transgressions that violate Torah law. And the Mishnah teaches the length of its handle is 1 handbreadth, and the width of the straps is 1 handbreadth, and the strap must be long enough so that its end reaches the top of his abdomen. And Abaye said, conclude from it that for each and every one, we craft the strap according to the size of their back, right? Custom-made flogging device. Rava said to him, if so, there will be numerous straps in court for them. Rather, Rava said it has loops. So when the attendant wants, he ties the loops to shorten the strap, and when the attendant wants, he loosens the strap to lengthen the strap. So the length of the strap can be adjusted to correspond to the height of the person who is being flogged. We can customize it's not a cat of nine tails, but this particular kind of whip that we're talking about for flogging one who's receiving lashes from a rabbinic court. We'll knock off there, take a few questions or comments. Bill, it occurs to me that I don't actually know this. What constitutes a field for the sake of diverse kinds? Say a Jew had a backyard garden, a single plot of land enclosed in a fence. He has a trellis of grapes at the far end against the fence, and then rows of different veggies. What does he have to do to prevent this from being diverse kinds? We had it, I forget which tractate it was in, but basically it was spacing. It can all be in the same field, but there has to be a certain amount of space between where you are planting one kind of crop and planting another. You can't intersperse, right? There were definitely definitions of it. I'm not that kind of genius. not even that kind of smart, not even that kind of memory. Certainly at my age, I can't remember the exact stuff, but it was about spacing. It was all about spacing. Bill also says, question about cooking during the festival for after the festival. I'm a fan of a former Episcopal priest turned food critic by the name of Robert Capon, who famously had an extended book of theology that was also a cookbook centered around a set of linked recipes. Lambs for 8 persons 4 times. The leftovers from the first meal form the basis for the second meal, and the leftovers and the third and the fourth. However, each meal is cooked separately. The leftovers are not simply reheated and eaten, they become ingredients in new dishes. Would it be acceptable to cook the first meal on a festival day and then use the subsequent leftovers for future meals, or is that a violation? It's a great question. The way I would read that, because they definitely have this idea, you can cook even knowing that you're going to have leftovers that you might eat beyond the festival, because there's always a chance that more people will stop by your house during the festival and you'll need all that food. So I don't think this becomes pigul, which really refers to sacrifices, but this idea that you had an intention at the outset, because you don't have that intention. Yes, it's available to you that if there are leftovers, you could serve them later. You could even reheat them in some kind of interesting way where they become a new dish, right? Where leftover lamb could then become lamb stew, something like that. And maybe you think that I might end up doing that. But at the time that you're cooking the meal on the festival for the festival, you're acknowledging that you might eat all of that food on the festival if more people stop by. So I think that would be okay. I think. Check with the local Orthodox rabbi to be sure. Debbie says, I'm glad that we no longer flog our congregants for punishment. I would be absolutely mortified if I was the one being flogged. And again, I think lashes were really administered very few times when you think about the warning that was required and then the kind of in flagrante response to do it anyway after being warned and in front of witnesses. So it's more about when is it appropriate and when is not, so that we understand the law. But at any rate, we haven't done it in a very long time. And I agree with you. Thank God. It would be awful to be flogged. I think it would be awful to witness flogging. But I would agree that it's worse for the one being flogged. That's what I've got for us today. And with God's help, we'll be together again tomorrow, Monday, to make a CU as we complete Tractate Makkos, God willing. So bring something to make a l'chaim on Tractate Makkos tomorrow, regular time, Monday, 6 p.m. Have a great night.